A futuristic western set in the Australian outback is the latest collaboration between actor Guy Pearce and film director David Michôd. The Rover is set in a society fractured by a global economic crisis and follows a loner on a mission of revenge. I spoke to Guy Pearce and David Michôd about the inspiration behind the film.
It's over for you.
I know that. Whatever you think's over for me was over a long time ago.
Guy, David, welcome to News Breakfast.
Thanks.
David, starting with you, the film is set 10 years after some form of, we assume, economic collapse in Australia. It's a pretty brutal, rugged place, the Australian outback. How did you come up with the concept?
Initially, Joel Edgerton and I were in Los Angeles just thinking of something to do and started working on what we thought might be a movie for his brother Nash to direct. His brother is this kind of stuntman and very accomplished sort of action director. And then as I went away to write a first draft and very quickly started writing the kind of movie I would want to make, which isn't necessarily an action movie. And after I went away and made Animal Kingdom and then my life kind of turned upside down, when I returned to the Rover, I found myself, when I was writing it, thinking quite a lot about the state of the world at the time. You know, this was not long after the financial crisis. It was not long after, you know, when the ETS got smashed in the Australian Parliament. I just started finding myself filled with a kind of despair. And that kind of, it also became a sort of anger. And all of this started feeding into the world of the movie.
And across this barren, desolate landscape, Guy, your character Eric strides. He's a drifter, his backstory is not too clear, and it's fair to say it's not one of your most talkative roles either. What did you first think when you first saw the script?
Well, I thought a number of things. One, obviously, I was really thrilled at the idea of, you know, David making contact and wanting to pursue this together. But I also had some real reservations, not reservations necessarily, but I really, because of the state of the character when we first see him in the film, and there isn't a lot of backstory, and that he is really sort of stripped of who he used to be, I was actually struggling to see who he was, in a way. So we had to really sort of backtrack together to a degree to just, for me to be able to latch onto something as who Eric was as a person, in order to then strip that away. So I was, you know, it was a tumultuous few weeks, or however long it was, to sort of try and get my head around it, I think.
Which made it exciting, I think, because I think it became quite clear to us that what we were hoping to achieve in your character was something quite kind of, you know, a monstrous creature.
Pretty specific, yeah, absolutely. So once I really got my teeth into it, it was obviously very exciting. And David's got such a, you know, unique voice and a really interesting filmmaking style. So it was really exciting once we got going.
Tell me where your brother is.
He's going south, a long way from here. I'll take you to him, I promise.
Your brother left you to die. He's abandoned you out here to me.
It's a difficult thing to explain sort of how you do it, but I think once you understand what the history is and you know, the objective of the character. I mean, he really, you know, it's a very depressed man, we find, and somebody, as David had sort of indicated, is filled with sort of despair and has really just given up on humanity because he feels like humanity's given up on itself, and he has this one last thing to do in his life, and that's been taken away from him by these guys taking this car. So that's his one and only objective, is to get that car back.
Because I believe in God, and I know Henry believes in God, and there's no harm Henry wants to see me come to. And I believe in that.
You look at the harm you've come to, and where's Henry?
He's waiting for me.
He's not waiting for you.
Yes, he is.
Robert Pattinson, Guy, your co-star, your, I suppose, half-willing accomplice in this chase after your car, almost physically unrecognisable, and a revelation in terms of the substance of his acting. Many people would know him simply as the Twilight star. What was it like working with him and seeing this new depth of acting?
It was really exhilarating, I have to say. I remember saying to you, I think, after the second day of filming and watching Rob do his stuff, I was like, wow, he's really good, isn't he? You know, it was really exciting because he you know, he does a lot of physical stuff in the film that's very difficult to do well, I reckon, and I think he pulls it off beautifully. And he's just utterly heartbreaking. You know, you have such sympathy for him as a character, I think, you know, because he's so vulnerable and so sort of naive. So he just does that stuff beautifully. I mean, what's interesting about Rob is he kind of acts like he doesn't care, you know. He really acts like, oh, yeah, whatever, I'm just, you know, just doing the thing.
And he acts like he doesn't know what he's doing as well.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
You never stop thinking about a life you've taken. What's the price you pay for taking it?
I'm still in control here.
He wanted to do this movie and he was willing to work for it, and so he came in and did a couple of long auditions for me, and that was all I needed to see. Within 5 minutes I knew that that stuff that Guy was seeing on day 2 of the shoot, I was seeing in my living room, and it was like, oh, the movie was coming alive.
How do you feel walking the red carpet with him?
Pretty insignificant. Yeah.
How do you think I feel? It's me standing next to these two guys as well. It's like I'm a foot shorter than them.
It was shot over 40 days in the Flinders Ranges in outback South Australia. Watching it, I felt sweaty. There's all the mozzies and the blowflies and the heat. David, was it a tough shoot?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was very tough, but it was, you know, I knew that over the course, trying to work out where to shoot the movie, I went out to that part of the world a couple of times. The first time I went there was in the height of summer, and it was brutal, and then I went there a bit later on, middle of winter, and it was actually really kind of pleasant. We were out there wearing ski jackets and stuff, and it became quite clear to me that if we were going to do this movie, we wanted to shoot it when it was when the climate, the conditions were most challenging. But, you know, it's like that. In some ways, the more challenging a shoot is, if you're in a remote location, the more you kind of bond with the people that you're working with. And that was... The days were tough and the nights were fun, you know.
And it's so beautiful out there as well. It really is such unusual, beautiful landscape that you're just constantly reminded that this story that you're telling, being set here, and the reality of actually being out there is inspiring. It really is inspiring, you know. You do get to the end of each day and go, whew, we're actually quite exhausted, aren't we? You know, but off we go again, ready for tomorrow, you know.
How do you pick your roles, Guy? You go from films like this, relatively low budget compared to the big Hollywood numbers you do from time to time. How do you go about, as an actor now in your age and stage, picking roles and scripts?
I mean, I just feel like I pick the best things that are sort of coming my way, whether it's a bigger film or a smaller film. And I mean, I mainly do smaller films. Things like Prometheus and Iron Man are pretty rare for me. You know, I get asked to do that sort of stuff only occasionally. But it's really just about responding on an emotional level, like you would if you read a book and it stays with you and you really feel like you enter that world, and that as an actor that you can kind of wear it, that you can fit into it. So I don't sort of go about it on any conscious level as far as sort of career-wise or anything like that. But I certainly sometimes choose things, I suppose, almost as a reaction to the last thing that I might have done, you know. I remember having, in 2007, having done 4 really, really heavy movies, and at the start of 2008, Adam Sandler called and said, do you want to come and do this big, silly, daft comedy called Bedtime Stories? I went, yes, absolutely, this would be great. So, you know, whereas a year before, I may not have chosen to do that.
Mm. And David, what's next for you?
I'm not entirely sure. I've got a few things bubbling, you know. There's a project that I'm developing with Brad Pitt's company based on a book called The Operators. And Joel Edgerton and I have written another screenplay for Warner Brothers that we'd really like to do as well. I mean, I think it's... Once the kind of madness of releasing the Rover has died down a bit, I think I can step back and have a look at the landscape. But what I do know is that I want to make something a little bit sooner after the last one than I did. Because, you know, it took me... That couple of years after Animal Kingdom was really, for me, kind of reassessing what felt like an entirely new life.
David and Guy, it's a terrific film. Thank you both so much for speaking with us.
Thank you.
No worries. Cheers.